I just wanted to do a short video talking about Gnosticism in a nutshell. I recently joined some groups on Facebook talking about it because I enjoy discussion about it, and I don't find a whole lot of other people that are very familiar with it. And even on those groups, people are asking, like, what is this all about? Which is an excellent question. And that's actually kind of the epitome, the quintessence of what Gnosticism is what is this all about? So I just thought I'd share that a little bit. Basically, Gnosticism means gnosis, or knowing. And when it comes to knowing, at the fundamental level, the closest thing to what we can say we actually know is our felt presence of experience, the primacy of direct experience, which is, our five senses and what we feel at a default level. And it's not assuming or giving away our faith to anything, because by giving away your faith to other things, to any ideology, that ideology then dictates your perception of things. Like, that takes the reins. And my argument is, through my experience, I have learned peace in not knowing, in just the pure honesty of like saying I don't know, and admitting the naivety that we have here, the naivety, however you say that. So basically, Gnosticism, you can read about it in a lot of the Gospels and passages, books, and texts that they didn't include in the Bible. And I'm not saying, anytime I read any of those, I'm doing it from more of an observer perspective. In other words, taking it with a grain of salt. Like, not being like, this is God's word. Like, that's what they want you to believe. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But it definitely resonates more like it's created by man, because it's based off of reward, punishment. And I had questions while I was in the church, because I grew up with fundamentalist Christianity. Excuse me. And I had questions like, why would God test its creation in such a, like, why would an all-loving father put an ultimatum on people, saying like reward for obedience, condemnation for disobedience, and have the stakes so high? If we are but sheep, but children, it's absurd to like put such a ultimatum. Like, you wouldn't do that to your kids. You wouldn't say, if you disobey me, you'll burn for eternity. Like, that kind of stuff, it's fear control, and it becomes a survival thing. So people think they're believing because of the reward for obedience, which they're also partly believing for that, but they're also believing because they're scared of, just in case, I better get insurance on my soul, right? But Gnosticism, in a nutshell, is about observing and knowing. At least to me it is. There's, with every different philosophy, there's lots of different versions of it and depictions of it. And it's helped me because I've been able to not attach to anything of it, just observe and feel and experience. And when I talk about the felt presence of experience, I'm talking about how it feels at just a baseline level. Like how, when I wake up in the morning, like the vibe when I walk into a building, or the vibe of just how I feel on the natch. And it definitely varies from different worlds I've been to in dreams, where the baseline felt presence of experience is quite different. And it's hard for us to discern that when this is all we feel all the time. And this is a very limited slice of the spectrum. I talk about this. It's a very limited slice of the spectrum of felt experience. There's so much more to it. And Gnosticism has to do with the demiurge, which is the creator of this planet, that created this hierarchical kind of control system. And, you know, as above, so below. Like, we experience that down here. It's also that way out in that realm. But we aren't necessarily from here. Like our physical experience is. Like, we are in these bodies. That is basically the real estate of their system. That's why there's all these beliefs on, like, detachment and embracing the nothingness, is trying to get away from that. But I would also argue that novelty and creativity is what it's like what we apple. Like, apple trees apple apples. They produce apples. We produce novelty and creativity. That's the nature of our being, from what I've experienced. And just experiencing these different dynamics of felt presence, these different roles. There's so many opportunities. Like, a lot of people have this perception of heaven where everything's perfect and it would just be boring after a while, but that's just a limited perception within this reality, that we have a hard time being able to imagine, like, unless you've actually felt it, being able to imagine all the different dynamics that could be at play. There's an infinite amount of them. Like, it's limitless. And there's so many different things you can experience. So people like to adopt the belief that it has to be this way. And my argument is that it does not have to be this way. It was Terence McKenna. Well, actually, he talked about David North Whitehead, who talked about the felt presence of experience. And that ties into Gnosticism and mysticism. And that, I think, is just key to our experience here. It's like, we're just here to experience. That's probably why we came here. And it does feel like a scam world in a lot of ways. Like, a lot of things kind of in different realms produce the same kind of results. I get the same kind of luck fishing as I do. It's like fishing for fish as I do getting dates. And there's just a lot of different fields of this existence that kind of curate the same kind of predictable outcome. And a lot of it's pretty bleak, if I'm being honest. Like, it definitely feels curated here. And that's one thing I've observed. Now, my whole thing is to entertain everything, but not give my faith away to anything. I really made this video to describe Gnosticism in a nutshell, and I keep kind of getting off on these side branches of it. But the demiurge is the first archon, and the archons are basically these entities that we don't see here that have technology or ability somehow, whether it's directly through themselves or through some kind of system, that they can curate certain emotions out of us. And that's the concept anyways. Like, we can always say we know so much, but the felt presence of experience is just observing what we feel and see. It's not taking it as truth, but it's the closest thing to truth, or subjective truth, as well as a subjective truth in addition to the collective the collective consensus consciousness that we can all agree is the same. Like, colors, that this seat is holding me, like, basic stuff. But then there's the felt presence of experience, which varies from person to person, and the dynamics. But all of us are kept within a certain field of ability. Basically, we're within a limitation of this place. That's another thing I've observed here. And that's the concept with the archons, is the curation of these different things, of these different modes of being and felt presence. And the way to escape it is through knowing, through recognizing your choice. And by giving away your faith to things, you're limiting your choice, because you're saying just this thing is true. And with everything being polarized here, even the closest thing to what we know is true could still be an illusion, but we experience it a certain way. So that's Gnosticism in a nutshell.